G'day, ZiggyD here. On my recent trip to the GGG offices, I had a chance to play around with the new cast on crit changes and to talk to Carl about how they came into being. Since the patch notes came out, there has been some confusion about how the new system works and also concerns on cast on crit's viability under the new system. So, here's how the new cast on crit system works. Now, only one skill can be triggered at a time. The spell that is triggered is based on the socket order. Cast on crit will remember the last skill triggered and move on to the next each trigger. There is a 500 milliseconds cooldown applied to a skill after it is triggered. So you can see in the footage in the background there that each skill independently goes on cooldown as it triggers, and it cycles through those in a methodical order based on the actual sockets. So to counterbalance these changes, cast on crit now also has a 100% chance to trigger on crit, so it'll be more consistent. Then, the gem now has a more spell damage multiplier starting at 20% and going up to 39% more at level 20. So the intention seems to be that cast on crit will become less spammy and more punchy. From my testing at GGG, it definitely feels this way. The spells really seem to chunk and hit really hard, and it's less that kind of constant stream of spray that you would get with, especially when I played Barrage cast on crit in the past. It's hard to tell testing on a different computer than what you're used to, but performance did seem noticeably better. And as a bonus upside, you probably won't be getting kicked from parties for using cast on crit anymore. However, because I wasn't able to take a cast on crit build that I had from 2.3 and test it in 2.4, I can't say whether the changes are a big nerf or not for existing builds. This one that I was testing on was designed for the 2.4 changes. But from my testing, it seems like cast on crit still has a lot of potential to see a lot of use. The test build I played that you guys can see in the background is obviously quite strong. Keep in mind that this footage is in the new higher tier Gorge map as well. It does seem like people are going to have to build some of their cast on crit builds a little differently in some cases. The new round robin casting system also means that there may be some interesting opportunities for elemental equilibrium setups where you rotate between spells of different elements, cast on crit becoming the true wild strike perhaps? In order to get some insight into the reasoning behind this change, I sat down with Carl. Here's what he had to say. So, cast on crit is getting changed. You've said, like, maybe a little nerf, but...
Yeah, so I think if you ask Jonathan, and I think you have, he'll say, well, it's not, the intent is not to nerf it, which is true, the intent is not to nerf it.
Yeah.
But while we have it there, it's like, you know, having changes, looking at and testing it, it's like, how do we want this to look? How do we want it to feel? The guys... have had a good look at it and a good play with it. So I think we'll successfully cut down some of the real top-end abuse cases, which is also a performance hit in the game, while still sort of allowing it to exist. There'll still be awesome stuff you can do with it. And some of the payloads of cast on crit are also getting buffed. So like Fireball and Arctic Breath, these are skills that kind of got kept down a bit by cast on crit.
Yeah.
Just with how many times you could cast them.
So how did that kind of like sit down and talk go when you guys discussed cast on crit? Like, because before it was like, there's obviously a problem here, right? It's destroying performance in particular was one of the main issues, right?
Yeah, and it's not been a fast process to be discussed. So it's actually been bumped from, you know, being addressed once before, because we basically have a number of system changes we'll happily put into each expansion basically, and we sort of look at them and which ones are we doing, which ones are we not, just because when you're refactoring the code there's this huge overhead and you've got to get all the code done and then you only get to sort of do the balancing bit after that. And then there was the skill Blight, which really needed the refactor. And there were discussed a few different ways of how it was going to go, and Jonathan came up with the method which we're using.
So, the intentions behind the changes seem good, right? Nerf a bit of some of the abuse cases, improve performance, and open up more builds. Pretty honourable intentions. But how will it pan out in practice? Cast on crit Discharge in particular is an iconic build that for some people is the only build they'll ever play again. If it dies, then a bunch of people will undoubtedly be very unhappy. I'm personally quite hopeful and fairly confident that such builds will manage to adapt, even if it means that they'll be a little bit weaker, and let's be realistic here, they could probably stand to be a little bit weaker. I'm pretty keen in particular to jump on my Shield Discharger post-patch and see how it pans out. Because this is a bit more of a big single impact style thing, the cooldown might not really affect it, and this might still be quite punchy and strong. Anyway, we'll see how it goes, but I wanted to give you guys some of this insight and some of my experiences from testing. That's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.